Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Sales Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Daniel McComber, and this is Brad Dillard.
What's
Thanks
up,
for
man?
joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
Well, this is just so funny because me and Brad, we got connected, about 8 months ago now.
Yeah.
6 to 8 months ago. And we're just like best friends now. So
It is funny, bro.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to make friends as adults, especially getting in your 30s, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny how quick we became tight. You know?
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
man.
like,
It's just
like, where you been all my life?
I know. Where have you been? And the crazy thing is that like we got to get our wives together too, so that way like the whole families can be friends and everything.
Yeah.
It makes it a little hard when I live in dang Texas, but no, I mean we've had so many conversations about like such deep topics, and who we are and what we're trying to accomplish as individuals. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today, we've talked about in one capacity or another.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of why I knew I wanted to have you on. Is you've gone a very untraditional route and accomplished things like just solely based off your own merits, and I love that. So to give you kind of
Thanks,
a background, Brad is you started in sales and then you transitioned into being a CPA and owning a CPA company, and then you transitioned from there to short-term rental, and you own a short-term rental company that is doing very well. And so, yeah, I guess what I'm kind of curious, those going from sales to like a CPA, and not only just being a CPA, but like owning a CPA firm, I guess.
Yeah.
Very unheard of. Like, I don't know if I've heard of anybody that's done that before. But I mean, I guess what kind of got you into the sales space in the first place?
Well, it is funny. A lot of people, when they meet me and I'm like, oh, I'm actually an accountant, they're like, you're unlike any other accountant I've ever met, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny how it all works. So yeah, my first experience in sales actually goes back to high school. My first sales jobs was Cutco knives. A lot of people have heard of that.
Yes.
Seen guys that have done it. I was actually slinging those illegally at 17 because you're supposed to be 18 to sell them. I was selling under other people's names. And it was funny. I was selling more than the people that like I was selling under. And wow. I mean, so I learned then that I like sales. I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And then I did do a door-to-door stint when I was like 19. I sold Dish and DirecTV. Nice. That was back when everybody still had Dish and DirecTV. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And it was such a funny sell. If they had DirecTV, I would sell them Dish. And if they had Dish, I'd sell them DirecTV, right? I just switching people all the time.
Yeah.
I was pretty good at that. And then I took a few years off from sales. When I went back to school, I got more serious into it. But I was studying accounting, working on my accounting degree. And through college, I was like, I'm broke, right? And it was a weird thing where I wanted to focus on this industry because it set me up more long-term, but I was very much aware of the door-to-door sales industry. The thing that scared me a little bit about it was I'd hear people say like, I went all in on that in my college days, didn't take school seriously, didn't like really consider a career because I was making so much money in college. And then they get in their mid-20s, late 20s, and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I have no other skills, right? I don't know anything else. Yeah. And so I was like, I could go make a lot of money doing that. But then what, right? If I could go back now, knowing what I know now, I would have done that actually. Yeah. But I'm happy with where I'm at, you know? But I didn't get back into the traditional door-to-door sales right away in college. What happened was I was a broke college kid. I was looking at getting just a W-2 job like on campus or in town like everybody else, but this is up in Idaho. Right. Minimum wage is like $7 an hour back then. Yeah. Right. And all of the jobs in town were paying $7 to like $9 an hour. And I was like, I have nobody helping me financially. Like my parents aren't helping. Nobody's helping me. I can't live off of $8 an hour on average. Right. But it was still in the semester, door to door. So I had decided I'm going to get back into door to door because I need to make a bag real quick. Yeah. Right. I need to just like fatten up my bank account to last me. But I still had 2 or 3 more months until the semester was over. And I was like, what can I do? Because I'm not going to go get a stupid job making $8 an hour. Yeah. And I thought of this guy that I met out in California. And this is crazy, dude. I don't know. It's still crazy to me that he did it. But I met a guy who was financially supporting his wife and 4 kids by just painting addresses on curbs. You know how like your house number on curbs? Yeah. And that hit me. I had a long drive from like Boise over to Eastern Idaho. And I had the music off, just by myself. And I was thinking, what am I going to do? I am broke, dude. I need to make money. I don't want to do it like everybody else is doing. And then that guy came into mind. I was like, if he can support his wife and 4 kids in California. It's expensive in California.
Yeah.
A lot cheaper out here in Idaho, right?
Yeah.
Then I can do it. And then I got back. I told my roommates what I was going to do. They're like, dude, you are a freaking idiot, bro.
There's no way.
They're like, what are you doing? And they saw I was like, had stencils and I had this like little template that I would fold over the curb.
Did you go make your stencils?
I made it. I had no idea what to do. I just made it up in my head. I was like, you probably do it like this. I think. We'll go see how it goes. Right?
We'll get numbers 1 through 9 and then a 0 and just go for it.
And so my roommates are literally making fun of me, trying to make me feel stupid. Like, bro, why don't you just go get a job like that?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I was actually dating my wife at the same time. And I was kind of embarrassed to tell her what I was doing. I was like, because she's like, but I did tell her. And she was like, what? Because everybody that I was around was just like, dude, just follow the norm. Why are you always trying to do something different? It's kind of the attitude.
Well, they looked at you as like the bum. Like, oh, you're gonna spray paint sidewalk. Dude, have fun with that.
So my very first day, I remember I went and knocked my first door I knocked on. This is Rexburg, Idaho. I just drove in a street that I feel like, oh, a lot of these houses need this redone. I knocked my first door, happened to be a doctor in town. And he's like, you know what? I love it when I see people hustling out, going out, thinking outside the box. He's like, sure, you can paint it. And he's like, what else do you do? I was like, I don't know what you mean by that, but I can do a lot of things.
What do you want me to do?
So he paid me to paint the curb on it, like his address on the curb. And then he hired me that entire day for like $20 an hour, $25 an hour to like wash his windows, clean his gutters, trim his bushes. And I come and he pays me in cash and I come back with like, I don't know, $140 cash or whatever. Yeah. And I just like slap it on the counter for my roommates. I was like, you guys still think I'm an idiot, dude?
Yeah.
I just made more in a day. Even though that's like very little amount of money, right? This is also 2015. This is like
a little different. Right. A little different, yeah.
And I was like, that's more than you guys make. That's as much as you guys make in 2 weeks working at your stupid jobs.
Yeah.
And then I went back the next day and I actually painted curbs that day.
Yeah.
And I started making money. And every day people would always pay me cash. I'd come up with wads of cash. And I averaged like $40 an hour is what I was making doing that.
Yeah.
That supported me. So that was like, and I was just knocking doors. So that was like a very, like you said in the beginning, I do things untraditionally. That was a very untraditional way to, right?
Yeah. No.
When people think door-to-door,
no structure, nothing.
So I did that all summer. My hands were always covered in paint. Everybody's like, what do you do?
I'm a graffiti artist.
Yeah. And I just told people I was doing a painting project. I actually wasn't telling people what I was doing.
They didn't need to know. It was your secret.
Yeah. I didn't want other people doing it.
Yeah.
My only competition actually was like middle school and high school kids doing their like Eagle Scout projects.
They were doing it for free.
And I'm like, how about you pay a broke college kid instead?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I had so much fun with it. I loved it. I got kind of addicted to it. My grades started failing because I was like, I just want to go knock doors and paint curbs. This is so fun for me.
Yeah.
So that's what I did that semester. And then following that, I went and sold pest control for like 4 or 5 weeks until the summer's over.
Okay.
And that was the plan, just to make, just to get me through the next couple semesters because I can't paint curbs in the winter in Idaho, right? So I was I need to go make enough money to get me through the winter months.
Yeah.
So that was that summer that I went and sold pest control for 5 weeks was my last stint in door-to-door. But then you asked me how I got into accounting and how I knew I wanted to do that.
Well, out of curiosity, a little more about that. I mean, you come up with this idea on your own, right? And I mean, you literally had been done door to door since you were 17 years old. So I'm just kind of curious, like, not a lot of 17-year-olds have the ambition to go out and knock doors and make money like that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, did you learn that from your parents, or is that something that you just did out of necessity?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I've thought a lot about this. Like, why do I? But because this desire to make money came from a really young age. I've always loved working. I was actually, if you really think about it, I was that 10-year-old kid walking around my neighborhood, knocking on doors, asking people if I can mow their lawn. So I guess it goes all the way back to then.
Yeah.
And I just love the satisfaction of being like, I have a skill, and without anybody pushing me, I can go market it. I can take it to the marketplace and people give me money for it.
Yeah.
Like, that feeling is addicting. If anybody listening to this, or I don't know if you've ever done any kind of thing entrepreneurial like that, but there is a sense of fulfillment that comes from just being like, I did this on my own. I am valuable on my own merit.
Yeah.
I'm not relying on any kind of paycheck or anybody else pushing me. It's like, there's so much fulfillment. Even when I've had like side hustles, like, for example, we'll get into this later, I guess, but after I graduated college, I went and worked at a CPA firm.
Yeah.
I actually quit that to go be a sales manager at a manufacturing company. I don't even think I told you that.
No.
And that was a 6-figure income job, And I had these small side hustles. I was like slinging taxes and accounting work on the side. And even though I was making far less money than my day job doing that, every dollar I made from that was way more satisfying.
Yeah.
I was like, I get more excited when I get paid $250 from a tax client versus getting my $10,000 paycheck from my job.
Yeah.
I get more fulfillment from that because I did that. That's me, dude.
Yeah.
You know? And so, but the reason, I guess, to kind of dig deeper into why, I have great parents. I love my parents. They literally, like, seriously are so great, like, as far as mom and dad, and like giving me a really beautiful childhood. But financially, things have always been kind of funky, you know?
Okay.
And so at a very young age, I had to start paying for my own stuff. Like, I played baseball for like 9 years, and it was playing sports all year long, all throughout elementary school and middle school.
Yeah.
And, you know, you got to buy uniforms and cleats and gloves, like you got to buy all that stuff. And my parents, like, at like 10 years old, was like, if you want to play baseball this year, you got to figure out how to pay for it because we can't.
Yeah.
And so that's where it kind of started. And even like in middle school, I was buying my own school clothes. I was buying like stuff like that. It's like, and so I realized at a young age, I was like, money's a tool to get what you want. I wanted these things.
Yeah.
My parents couldn't get it for me. And so I don't blame them at all for that.
Sure.
It gave me a great work ethic, but it also just made me realize it's like, you have the power within you to go get whatever you want.
Nothing's free.
Nothing's
handouts.
free. There's no handouts. And I actually, speaking of that, it's like, that's kind of a motto for my life, is that nobody owes me anything. And I believe that. And because of that, I hold no resentments, no grudges. And I go into every situation thinking more of what value can I provide? What can I give, rather than what can I get from this person? Because I truly believe that nobody owes me anything. Yeah, and I learned that at a young age. It's like, okay. And even with my parents don't owe me anything. Yeah. Whatever I want, I go get, you know? Yeah. So that's where that desire to work and make money came from at a young age. And when I did it at a young age, man, I was like, God, this is fun. Yeah. This is fun. So I'm
sure the sports and everything that you were doing was even that much more meaningful, right? You probably put your heart into it even more because you earned the way to be on that team.
And actually, yes. Because in being on that team and like getting selected for club teams and, I worked so much harder to be great at those sports because I had to work my butt off just to get on the team to afford the uniforms and everything. Right. And so it was really meaningful.
You gave yourself the opportunity to be successful. And so you're going to take every chance you can get. Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Absolutely. So you're kind of bred up in this household where, you kill what you eat. You got to go out there and you got to make the money in order to do what you want to do. That translates into college. And so what kind of gave you the idea that, you've been doing sales for so long, you got all this meaning from it. It sounds like you didn't want that to be your long-term though. You didn't want to do sales forever. You wanted other skills. And so what kind of led you down the path of like accounting?
Well, I've always been like a numbers guy, always loved, I kind of thought that just accounting was counting money. I was pretty ignorant to what it was when I got into it. But I actually went to school originally for finance, but then I had mentors, my grandpa, my uncle's a CPA down in Arizona, very successful. And he's like, if you want to get into finance, you can, but get an accounting degree. It's so much more useful. And then if you can get into finance with an accounting degree, but you can't get into accounting with a finance degree. Gotcha. Right? So it doesn't go both ways. Yeah. And so I decided to study accounting, and then I just kind of got like funneled into this, world of tax and accounting. Okay. But the reason I did that was because I think even though I realized, the power's within me to go create value and get paid and earn what I want, I still grew up with a lot of fear and this very limited mindset around money. Like, money is short. Money is not abundant. Money is very limited. And so, because that's what I always saw with my parents, right? Like, money's hard to get. Yeah. And I, and when I did earn money, I still feel like I worked really hard to get it. It took, even though I got it, I had to work hard to get it. Yeah. And so I wanted something that was, thinking, I'm going to get married, have kids. I want something stable. I want like a good career that is recession proof and all this stuff. Yeah. And then I got into it. So that was kind of the reason behind it. But I always knew in my head, I'd always be doing something on the side. I'd probably always have something to do with sales or some kind of business. Right. Yeah. And, but then I got into my accounting career. I worked in, for other CPA firms for like almost 3 years. And I was sitting there in like my third year. I had just graduated with my master's degree in taxation. I was getting ready to take the first CPA exam out of 4. And I was listening to the conversations going on in my accounting firm. And I was like, And even just the people I work for, I was like, dude, I do not belong here, man. I am not like you guys. You guys have no aspiration. Great people, but no aspiration. You guys are not inspiring me at all. I was like, if I stay here too long, I'm going to become like you. I'm not going to make you like me. I'm probably going to become like you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like you guys, you know? And then the company that I had worked for a company previously, and they actually had offered me a sales position. And at this time, I'd already started gathering like tax clients and accounting clients that I was just running through the firm. But that also pissed me off because I'd bring in a client, the company would take 90% of it, even though I sourced the client and I did the work.
Yeah.
They took 90% of the revenue from those clients. And I was like, this is dumb, dude. And and I honestly didn't love the work a ton.
Yeah.
I was like, I have this skill.
Well, I mean, that's the joke. Accounting is not like fun.
I was like, I would never, out of all my years in accounting, I never be like, wow, that was a fun day at work. You know?
Yeah. It's hard work too.
Yes. And and it was like always complex. And the further I got down the road, the harder stuff I was working on. I was like, man, anyways. But what I loved about it, the only time when I was like, this is fun is when I was out getting clients. I was like, the hunt for that. The sales process within the accounting world is like, I'm here for that.
Yeah.
So I looked at what I could, and then I also looked at that accounting job. I was like, okay, how long is it going to take me with this stupid comp plan you guys got? How's it going to take me just to even get to 6 figures?
Right.
9 years.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, I don't got time for that. Who's got time for that? Oh,
yeah.
I was like, I want to be making 6 figures like next year.
Yeah.
And you guys are like not going to let me do that.
You're capped.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, it's just how it was. And then that was actually the conversation that broke me. That I was like, I'm getting out of here. We were talking about that as like a group, all of my other little bean counter accountants that were sitting in the cubicles next to me.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, I should be at like 6 figures by like 20, this is 2018. Yeah. I should be at 6 figures by like 2025. I was like, come on, man.
Yeah, that's wild.
So then I really started considering the sales position, and because I was like, I can make 6 figures in that immediately, year one. And that will give me the freedom and flexibility to go out and build this tax and accounting business on the side. Because I don't want to leave the industry necessarily. Yeah. I just want to be free, and I want to start making money now. Yeah. I don't got time, So that's what I did. I told my wife that I was like, I'm leaving the accounting firm. I'm gonna go take this sales job. She's like, and mind you, I had just finished my master's degree. Like the plan was set. The career path was in front of us. And she was like, anyways.
Freaking out a little bit.
Out, yeah. Freaked out.
Well, I mean, you got to have your wife's support in some capacity. So what like helped her understand that the reason why you wanted to go to the sales? What helped her understand?
That, and I laid kind of just what I explained to you, I explained to her, but still she didn't get it. She's like, that's okay if it takes time. Mm-hmm. You got to think of the long term here. And I was like, the long term also seems miserable. Yeah. So she eventually was like, well, and really what it came down to, I was like, just please trust me. Mm-hmm. I take the role of a provider very seriously. At that time, we didn't have any kids. She still had her job and her career she's chasing. So we didn't have any mouths to feed, and she was kind of independent on her own. Yeah. But I was like, I know that ultimately it's going to come down to me. And I was like, I promise I'll take care of you no matter what I do. Okay. Yeah. And she's like, okay, do what you're going to do. And then obviously once I went working there and I had all the tax income on the side and this day, 6-figure day job, she was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Yeah. Well, super happy for, and I was just a much happier person because I was doing something that was fun for me. Yeah. And I enjoyed. Anyways, after 2.5 years of doing that, I had built up this tax and accounting business on the side. That was pretty lucrative. I had a couple hundred clients. And I was like, and within that same time period, I started the short-term rental business that you brought up earlier.
So, I mean, real quick, the transition, that's a pretty crazy transition. Yeah. So you mean the sales job was essentially finding clients for yourself, or were you with it? What was the sales job?
Oh, yeah. So the structure was that roommate in college that I mentioned earlier that was like, yo, bro, come down and do sales with me. This is like the door-to-door sales I did when I was in like 18, 19. Mm-hmm. He was also a CPA and was working at the same accounting firm. He was leaving to go take a different job to get out of the public accounting where he's not like doing taxes anymore. Mm-hmm. And he was like, bro, if we leave, we can start our own business, bro. Yeah. And like, it'll be fun. So I partnered up with him I was going finding clients for our business. So I had a partner in it.
Okay. Yeah.
And because I had done door-to-door sales, was connected in that industry, our primary client was door-to-door sales guys. Because all door-to-door sales guys, like large portion of them are paid as 1099 contractors. Yeah. So they're subject to self-employment tax and nobody's really helping them, but they qualify for all of this tax strategy, but nobody's helping them. They're all 22-year-old, 24-year-old kids that don't know any better, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I know how to help these guys. I understand the industry. I know what deductions are there. I know all the ways to help them save money. I know exactly how to structure their income. I was like, dude, I'm going after this.
Yeah.
And I still have all these connects. So I started calling everybody I knew. And my partner had also done door-to-door sales for years. So it was like, so the two of us had connections, and within a couple of years, we grew it to several hundred clients.
Wow.
And 80% of which were door-to-door salesmen or women, and so we created an entire accounting business around this industry that we love.
So you had the inside knowledge, right?
Yeah.
You knew, I mean, you took something that the knowledge, the experience that you had, and you translated it and said, hey, listen, I have acquired this skill. Like you said at the beginning, like so many sales guys are in sales for a really long time and then they want to get out of it and they don't have any other skills.
Yeah.
You were able to gain those skills through school and accounting and everything. So that way you could do sales in a different way and it would benefit in such a greater capacity because you're coupling sales with your accounting knowledge.
Yeah.
And so now, okay, you have a background in sales, you have accounting, and you have connections to the salespeople that you were working with before. And so you just kind of found a way to bring everything together in an entrepreneurial spirit, I suppose.
Yeah. And part of that was when I was working at the accounting firm, I don't even remember how much I was making at the time. Not a lot, 60 grand a year, 55 grand, whatever. And I was working like 400 hours of overtime, it was like just to make 55, 60K a year.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I would get my paychecks, but I was doing this, and they actually had a rule, like you can do like friends and family, like whatever, just do them, and they didn't really care if we were charging them or not, whatever. But if it was like a legit client, you have to run it through the firm.
Yeah. So
I was like doing these friends and family, and basically everybody fell into the friends and family, right?
Yeah.
So they would pay me, and I'm like, oh, if I did this buddy of mine and he paid me $200, $150, I'm like, again, that felt so much more meaningful to me than the paychecks I was getting.
Yeah.
And I just was like addicted to this feeling of like, I love going out to a marketplace, creating value within that marketplace, marketing that value, and the people give me money for it. Like, man, there's just like, that's one of those feelings in life that just, I want everyone to experience.
Yeah. Well, you have this trend, and I mean, this is such a unique aspect because you have this trend of not following the norm, like not, you could have joined with someone who already is at an accounting firm, become like a partner with them, somewhere that's already established, and then brought clients in and you're a partner of the firm. But you just went and did your own. Yeah. Just like the Curbs, man. Like there was no one that had a curb company that you joined. And so you use, I mean, that takes a lot of, skill and creativeness, to be honest, to be able to come up with an idea like, hey, why don't I start my own firm and why don't I target sales guys? Because, when you could be honest, did you target sales guys because you thought, oh, that's easy, we'll pick up so much money? Or did you target sales guys because you realized, holy crap, these guys don't know anything about taxes and they're getting reamed?
Well, I would never start a business without the intention of making money, right? But so yes, it was both, to be honest. It's like, but I also have a pretty big conscience when it comes to business. There's just like those savages out there that I know that I'm like, I don't know how you live like that. I've got a huge conscience. Like, I don't want to hurt people. I want to create a great value. And when I take money from people, I want it to be deserved, And so it was both. Honestly, it was both. I knew I could bring value to these people who needed it, and I knew they'd pay me for it. So boom, let's do it. The scary part about it was one, kind of leaving the safety of everything, but also when you're running your own business, you are the fall guy. Like there's no, like when I was like kind of just a lowly accountant, a staff accountant, if I screwed up on somebody's taxes or something, the partner or the manager I got yelled at by them, but the client's reaming them out. Right.
Yeah.
And so if I ever screwed up, I'm putting myself in a position to screw up. And if I screw up, I have to take complete and full accountability for it. And I can't hide behind anyone else, And so there was that aspect of it that was really scary. And so there was a lot of discomfort that came with it in anything I did. Right. But again, it was just like, I knew that this is more fits who I am and what I want. Yeah. And
the fulfillment you got.
The fulfillment. The fulfillment. It's like, I wanted fulfillment and it was given it to me.
And the money was following. Right, because of that. Yeah. So you have the successful business, you are doing accounting and you have that sales aspect of it. Things are going good. when did you decide, well, I guess while you're doing that, you said that you started doing Airbnb and short-term rentals, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how did that come about? You just hear about it one day, you see an ad for it or something?
Yeah, well, this is something I've always, travel and hospitality has always been something I've been attracted to. This is
Really? Why is that?
I just, from the time I was a kid, we didn't travel much, but I always wanted to. And so the little bit that we did, I just cherished it.
Mm.
And I remember the first time I stayed in a hotel was probably this junky Motel 6. I had to sleep on the floor, but I just remember being so excited sleeping on this junky. I was like, we're in a hotel, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I was so excited. And what's so funny, dude, people, again, I guess this just tells how different I am too. In 8th grade, I remember we did a career project and everybody's picking the normal careers: firefighter, police officer, doctor, lawyer. Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody knows in 8th grade what you want to do. Huh. But I chose hotel management. And, and everybody's like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't really explain it. I don't even know what hotel management is. I just know I love hotels, dude. I love them. I want to be in them. I still to this day love hotels. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I just, and sometimes as I've built my short-term rental business, I will walk through hotels and just like look at them, like, what are they doing? Whatever. And every time I stay at a hotel, I'm inspecting everything. Yeah. Not out of judgment, just out of like admiration and looking to learn more about the industry.
Wow.
And so that's what I knew. I always wanted to get into real estate. And because when I was working in the accounting world too, I was working on a lot of rich people's taxes, and they all own real estate. Doctors, dentists, all these rich businessmen, they all owned a bunch of real estate. And that was just like, they had their business or their main source of income, but their true wealth was coming from real estate. Wow. So I was like, I want to get into it, and I want to merge the two because I love real estate and I love hospitality. And when Airbnb was founded, years ago, it started to gain in popularity. I was like, this is my way in to kind of merge all of it in one. Mm-hmm. So I knew I wanted to do it. And at the time, it was just supposed to be like a side hustle. I was like, I just want to get a couple properties, just run it. If I can make an extra few grand a month on the side, sick. Yeah. But then I realized when I got into it, I was like, this is a very scalable industry. Mm-hmm. And then it just started scaling. And then I got to a point where I had my full-time sales job, I had my tax and accounting business, and I had this growing short-term rental company. Mm-hmm. Got to the point where I was too busy. I was like, something has to go. Yeah. And of course, my wife was thinking, it's definitely not your day job. Yeah. Get rid of one of the businesses. I was like, I think I'm going to get rid of the day job. Yeah. She was like, again, freaking out. Because at the time, she was pregnant. Mm-hmm. We were pregnant with our first kid, right? And it's
perfect time to make a career change.
Well, it's so funny because it's like I left my accounting firm, my day job at the accounting firm, 2 weeks after I graduated my master's degree. Then I leave my day job, which is like a 6-figure income job, mm-hmm. very safe and secure. I was great relationships there with the owner of the company. Like I could stay there the rest of my life, and they would have loved it, right? I left that job like 3 weeks after our son was born.
Your timing,
the timing, dude. That like people, I'm crazy, right?
Heart attack every time,
right? But I knew it was like I had to go, and I told you earlier, I have like a conscience, and I was to the point where I was getting stretched so thin between the 3 sources mm-hmm. of income that I felt like I was being dishonest to my employer because I was like. I mean, I was still hitting my quotas and doing everything, but I could do that working 25 hours a week, 20 hours a week. But I was like, the base salary I have is based on 40 hours a week. Right. And I just felt like, I was like, something's got to go. And for sure, I'm not going to stop these businesses. Yeah. I want to keep growing them. It's more fun for me and more fulfilling. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to rip anybody off on the way, Yeah. So I was like, I think now is the time to go because I'm at that point where I can't keep it all going at the same time. Yeah. And we had plenty of money in the bank at the time too. And I was like, and I have runway. Let me try this for a year or two, see if it works. And if I fail miserably, that's okay. Mm-hmm. I can always go back. I'm an accountant. I can go get an accounting job anywhere, right?
Yeah, you have that base.
Yeah. So I had runway, and here we are. I left that job 3 years ago.
3 years ago. Yeah. Wow. So for the past 3 years, you were doing your own clientele, mm-hmm. Taxes, all that, growing that, and doing the short-term rental. But kind of recently, you made another change. Right.
Yeah.
So because when I met you introduced yourself, or no, I was talking with Corey Clark, mm-hmm. right? And you guys have been best friends for a really long time. Yeah. And I was talking with Corey for the first time, and I was like, hey man, I've seen what you've done on Instagram and everything. Yeah. I love what you're doing. And then you walk up, and I told him, I'm like, oh yeah, like I've invested in a couple Airbnbs as well. Yeah. And I was doing one of them I owned, and the other one I had, I was arbitrage. Yeah. And you walk up, and I thought I was kind of cool because I had said I had like 2 Airbnbs.
You are cool, bro.
Oh,
You've
thank
got
you,
more.
dude.
You have more Airbnbs than the average person.
But I thought it was kind of cool. And you know, Corey, me and him, and then you walk up and Corey's like, oh, you gotta meet my guy Brad. He does Airbnbs. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, yeah. And I turn around, we start talking like, yeah, I have like hundreds.
Oh, I don't have hundreds. No.
Like 100 Airbnbs. You just said tons. And I was like, oh, that's sick. Well, what's your job? Like, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I run Airbnbs. I'm like, you're living my dream right now, dude. Like, okay, you just humbled me so bad. I was like, dang, that's so sick.
Yeah.
And then later you told me that, was an accountant forever. I'm like, dude, you're not making any sense.
Yeah.
You were in sales and then accounting, and then now you just do short-term rental. You're an anomaly. So, I mean, at what point did you leave the accounting?
Well, it got to the same point. Again, it was like fulfillment, and then it's also just what made sense. And I got to the point where I was feeling like I was too stretched again. And here's the thing: I love being self-employed. I love going out and creating income, and I'm great at creating jobs for myself. Right? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say I'm not a business master. That is actually where I'm focusing on now. I was like, I need to get better at business, not just at creating an income for myself. Yeah. I'm great at being financially independent. I'm not great at being financially free, right? So there's a difference in my mind. And so I was just working like a dog, dude, managing a couple hundred clients, and I had dozens of Airbnbs at the time. And it was getting too busy. Yeah. And I was just feeling, and I was getting stressed, and I feel like I was dropping the ball. I wasn't maximizing anything. And plus, after the pandemic, that whole taxing world got a lot more difficult because of all these government programs that were coming out, all these grants, everybody wanting in on it, every stimulus, everybody trying to get theirs, you know. And what it was doing is creating a ton more work for me to keep up on everything and keep up on these changes and be able to explain everything to my clients and why it does not apply to them with no new income. Yeah, and all of those hours I wasn't able to bill for, and it was just the IRS was in shambles. A lot of my clients were getting notices for no reason. Yeah. Completely unwarranted. We didn't do anything wrong. I knew everything was correct. And anyways, and so I was finding myself dealing with all these issues and having all this additional work with no additional income attached to it. Yeah. And it was just becoming like, and again, it was like, I don't enjoy doing this work. I love the hunt of going out and getting clients. Cause for our door-to-door sales clients, we'd fly all over the country and pitch teams. It wasn't like we were just calling whatever. Yeah. And that was what also made it fun is my partner and I, we'd been to a dozen states pitching teams on tax and accounting services. Yeah. And it was a sales process, you know, absolutely. And I loved it. Those trips were so fun. I loved it, but we weren't doing that as much because we just had so much going on, and it just got down to where I'm just doing the work. It's stressful. I feel like I'm at capacity. Well, now what, you know? Yeah. So then we started talking about it. I was like, well, and the short-term rental business was way more scalable. Yeah. And you can create systems around it better, and there's less compliance issues to deal with. I mean, you know what I mean? Airbnb really and you don't have to deal with the IRS, right? Yes. So I was like, okay, I love this business, but it's getting to the point where I don't know if it makes sense anymore. And I think that's normal in life, right? Yeah. A lot of times people think change is bad or whatever, but I was like, I accept change because that just means that I'm growing or things have changed, you know? And that's what kept happening every time I'd make a transition. It's just that I continued to grow as a person to a point where that made sense when 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it didn't make sense. Yeah. But I've continued to grow in my skill set, and just my outlook on life is changing. My concept of business and money is changing. And so I just continue to go with the flow with what makes sense at the time and just hope and pray that it all works out. Right? Yeah. So I was kind of at the point where I would be okay either just liquidating or like dissolving that business and walking away from it. I was like, but if we could sell it to somebody, that'd be cool. Yeah. And at the time, I didn't even really think we could. You know, really? I didn't know much about that. Okay. But then there's this mutual friend that both my partner and I knew, who was also a CPA, and he was just working for a firm. And he was always like, I want to get out of here, dude. I want to go do my own thing. Yeah. And we're like, well, dude, we have a whole book of clients ready to roll. And your partner was okay with selling as well? Yeah, because it was always a part-time thing for him. He still had a W-2 job full-time that whole time. Wow. So he had climbed the ranks. He was like a controller at the time. So he was he had a great salary and benefits and everything. And it was getting to the point where he was too busy for him too, and he didn't know if it was worth it. Plus he had some stuff going on back with, family issues, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And so he was almost kind of dropping the ball. I was having to like start servicing his clients because he just, So you could see the timing was right. Yeah, I think that it had run its course. Yeah, and you got introduced to that guy, and he said that he wanted to try something new. How long did it take? Like, how long was the process of
vetting that guy and going through the
It took about
transaction?
a year. It took about a year to go through it all. But it's like we started that business in 2018. We sold it in 2023. So like we ran it for 5 years, and that was a whole learning curve on its own, figuring out how to sell a business. I was like, I have no idea how to do this. But it was awesome. And because he was a homie, and we were like, dude, he's gonna pay us for this. We kind of thought we just have to walk away from it. He's actually gonna pay us for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we gave him a discount on it for sure. It was still a 6-figure exit, but we definitely gave him a great deal on it. And he and I are still homies, and he's doing great. Yeah. And so I mean, it was like a win-win for everybody. It was awesome because we got paid to leave. And so I was making money last year without doing anything. And I was like, wow, I'm addicted to this, right? Yeah. And then it's completely changed his life, And so he loves it. And he's continuing to grow it. And that's all he does. He's not like me where you got to have your hands on all these things. Yeah. He's like, this is what I'm doing.
That's his purpose, right?
And for him, it's like he's only going to work full-time 3 months a year. Right. And he's making a couple $100,000 a year. And
tax season.
Yeah. And he's like, this is the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Wow.
And I was like, so that feels good.
You got to love having an exit and someone else. It's mutually beneficial. All parties are happy.
Dude, win-win situations are the best, man. Yeah.
And so you dive headfirst into just scaling this Airbnb business. And I mean, there's very few people that have started and maintained a business around Airbnb. That they'll be like me. Like I have 2 properties at an Airbnb. It's great. It brings me passive income. I manage both of them because my motto is as long as you have fantastic cleaners, the rest is kind of easy.
You nailed it, bro.
I think we both said that before.
It's that easy.
Yeah. We've had to fire cleaners because all that matters is the cleaners show up and it's a clean place.
If your cleaners are not loyal to you, you're screwed.
Everything else could just figure itself out. But so there's a huge difference between doing it kind of passively and having it as your full-time job. Yeah. What do you think are the biggest lessons you've learned from scaling it and having it be your full-time job? Yeah, well, there's a couple big lessons. First is the power of focus, right? I thought it was cool that I owned several businesses and had several streams of income. That's what I would always heard is millionaires have 7 streams of income or whatever. But most of those are passive if they actually do that, right? But I finally was smart enough to start getting some mentors who were doing super well and were where I wanted to ultimately get. And they all kept, there's only 2 of them, but they both kept saying the same thing. You need to focus on something. You think you can multitask, but you can't. Yeah. And that was actually where my stress of multitasking. Have you read that book? I haven't. Oh, it's a pretty short book and it's one of my favorite books. It just kind of goes into the idea you can't multitask. You're doing one thing at one time. Yeah. So you finally realized, hey, I've had so many sticks in the fire at one time. This is the time I have to commit to just being all in on one thing. Yeah. And this, when I was working with them, I still had my tax business. And so I was working both. And I was doing some like coaching and mentoring for other people in the Airbnb space too. Yeah. And so I had the, I was doing all these things. And what I realized for years, I thought I was cool doing that. Mm-hmm. And then what I realized was like, I'm actually just kind of an idiot. I'm making my life way harder than it needs to be. And my stress and anxiety that I was constantly living with was coming from that, trying to multitask and manage all of these things and not doing any of them great. I was just kind of doing I was not like I was screwing over my clients. I was doing great work for them, but it was like I wasn't able to respond to them as quick as they wanted to, or I wouldn't respond to them at all. Things like that. And it was like I wasn't being great at anything. I was just being good at all these things, and it was stressing me out. Yeah. And it was keeping me from implementing systems and teams and processes and all the things I needed to in any of the businesses. And so what my mentor told me is like, you need to pick how you want to make money. What's your favorite way to make money? What do you want to do? You need to ruthlessly eliminate everything else out of your life that does not have to do with making money in that way. And then you do not do anything else until you have maximized that source of income. He's like, this whole, you need 7 streams of income. That's down the road, man, when you've got millions and millions of dollars and you've made all, but right now where you're still kind of at ground, you're still building, you're still new. Yeah. You need to the power of focus. Like that's your greatest asset. You have to have your focus. I love that. And so that was what validated my desire to get out of the tax business. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm either dissolving it or I'm selling it to this guy, whatever. But in the next 3 months, I'm exiting one way or the other. Yeah. And that's what we did. So we ultimately sold it. And then now it's like, so that's the first thing, I guess, lesson I learned doing this is I need to focus. And then since then I've scaled it every year after year.
we're on pace to have our best year ever, right? And so it's like, and I know that next year we'll beat it. That year we'll just keep beating it, right?
Yeah.
And now ultimately my goal with this is to sell this business eventually when I decide, because I know at this point history repeats itself. More changes are coming, right?
Yeah.
Do I think I'm going to be doing this till I'm 60 or whatever? No, absolutely not. But am I determined to make this business work so that I can sell it? Absolutely. So that's lesson number 2 is why start a business without the intention of ultimately selling it, because it completely changes the way that you start it. Most people think, I'm going to go start a business, that you're doing all the work, you have all the skill, your face is on everything, you know, and a business that is like, what you can't do is sell somebody a job. If somebody's going to buy your business, they want a business. That's not going to extract 50 hours a week out of them. I guess my tax business is the exception to that, because I did sell that guy a job essentially, right? But that's what he wanted. That's what he wanted
to be his own boss.
Yeah, and
you sold him the opportunity to be his own boss.
Right. And that's what he wanted, and he loves it, right? So that worked out. But with like a short-term rental company, nobody would buy it unless it had everything that it needs to be a valuable business, and that means that I can't be the guy running everything. But for the first like 3 years of that business, I was. I didn't have a team. It was all on me. And I was always stressed because, you know, with running an Airbnb, if there's something that's going to go wrong with one, that's that Friday night at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. It's
the Friday night curse, right?
Ever.
So it's like, if you're the one doing everything, and if that's how you want to live your life, great. That's not how I want to live mine, you know, especially now with kids and stuff. And my wife is so sick of me being on my phone working in the evening. When she's like, be present with us. I'm like, sorry, got an issue to deal with, you know?
Yeah. So you learned through your first two company or your first two industries, you learned, hey, you know, with sales, I didn't make money unless I was the one physically doing it.
Right.
With taxes, I don't make money unless I'm the one physically filing and doing it. And so you finally, well, I shouldn't say finally, but you transitioned into a business where starting this business, you had the focus that you're going to focus everything into this business. And then you had the mindset and awareness that, hey, I'm going to grow this to a point where there's systems and operations in place where I'm not going to have to do what I did the past 2 times.
100%.
I can run the company without being the only source of a way for it to make money.
Yeah. And that's ultimately how you can place a value on a company or a business, is that could I sell, somebody else come and take my place, and systems and process teams are already in place to where they're not coming in and trying to buy a company that's going to extract 40 hours a week from them, but they can come in and oversee and manage for 10 hours a week. That's what it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
And so over this past year, that's what I've gotten into, and it's crazy, man. I am probably making the best money I've ever made, and I'm working the least amount I've ever worked at this point. It's taken me a year. Like I said in the beginning, I wouldn't consider myself great at business, but I'm learning, and I'm learning that this is super important. But now, you know, as I continue to go out my life, it's like, that's the mindset I always take on business in general, is like, you build this to sell, even if you decide to never sell, but just build it to have that option always. Why not?
Yeah.
And that means that you need to create these systems and processes. You need to have people that help you, so where you're not doing everything. And even if you never want to sell, you want to protect your lifestyle, right? You want to protect your freedom. And because a lot of times people will build businesses and they think getting out of their W-2 job is going to give them freedom, but really they just go start their own business and work more than they've ever worked in their life. That's what I did. That's what I did for years. Yeah. I'm like, and my wife would ask me, like, didn't you do this to like have more time? You have way less time. And I was like,
you went backwards.
Trust me, babe, I'm figuring it out. I'll get there. And I'm like, she's so happy that I'm finally there. Like, and this time of year is my slow time of year with vacation rentals in Utah. Yeah. And my wife, I've taken a lot of time off. Like just before this, I was with my wife and kids. We went out to lunch, and like, she's like, you never do that. You know, it's like, and I could just see the gleam in her eye. She's like, thanks for coming to lunch with us today. This is so fun when you do this. And I've made it a point to be intentional about that. I can do that so much more now. Yeah. And it is super rewarding, man. But
I think that you learned a lesson that I've been kind of preaching for a little bit now, where, you know, everyone's used to the idea of compounding interest on money, right? You invest money, it makes money, and then it just keeps compounding. Right. I feel like what people aren't as aware of is the idea of compounding like experiences, right? Where you learn from your experience, you learn from your business, and then you pivot, and then you learn again, and then you pivot again. Yeah. And through the experiences that you had with these other companies, you finally got to a place where you said, you know what? I'm going to create systems and operations so that way I can have the time freedom, I can have the scalable business, and I have a goal of exiting as well. Yeah. And so that's one thing that I'm trying to preach and really shed light on is, hey, listen, if you're not putting yourself in a place where your next opportunity is going to compound off of what you learned from your last one, then it's probably not a great idea.
Yeah.
If you're just constantly leaving one opportunity to go to another one, and there's no overlay, there's no growth from the lessons you learned at your last, then it's probably not a good idea.
Totally.
I mean, through your story, I've been able to hear every step of the way you learned from the experience that you had before, and then you would grow, and then you learn again.
Absolutely, man. And the goal is always to get better, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you mind if I take it here, but the biggest thing too with business and I think sales is the emotional toll. You know, like I feel like before the last like 3 years, I've told my wife this. She's probably one of the only people I've told. Before that, I feel like I was always a very confident, playful person. And I feel like to an extent, and I'm working on it now, and you and I are working on it together, right?
Yeah.
To an extent, I feel like everything I've tried to do is just like stripped me of who I am to a point, just because like crippling anxiety, sometimes panic attacks, the fear of failure constantly on my mind, and me fighting through these limiting beliefs that money's hard to get, that, I'm going to turn out like my parents and not have, things like that. It's like I'm fighting through all these fears all the time. And it took such a massive toll on me emotionally and physically, like in every way, that it had a huge impact on my marriage, my relationship with my wife. And I've told you this off camera. I didn't plan to say it today, but just in the past 6 months, my wife admitted, like, if you don't fix something about how you're managing all this, like, I don't see us staying together much longer.
Yeah.
And I can't blame her for it, because I was like, I was bringing nothing. I was keeping my happy, confident face on all day for my employees, for my people, for my guests, everything that I was doing. But when I'd come home, I'd take that mask off and I would just be like, I would let everything I was feeling out.
Yeah.
And I was projecting that on my kids and my wife, and was bringing that energy into our house. And so, I mean, you talked about biggest lessons learned. I talked about, focus and systems and processes, but really what it's been is protecting yourself emotionally to the point where you don't lose what matters most, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was telling myself that story, like, I'm doing this all for them. I'm making these sacrifices. I'm working my butt off for them. But all I was doing, trying to go out there and get what I think they need. In the meantime, I was losing myself, which means they were losing me, and I was losing them.
Yeah.
And over this last 6-9 months, whatever, we've known each other. I've put in so much work on that, and I have shown them by physically being there and bringing happy energy, playful energy into our house again, proving that they are my biggest priority. And it doesn't matter. I could lose everything. I could fail in my businesses, but that doesn't mean I'm going to lose myself, and they're not going to lose me no matter what.
Yeah.
But I had lost myself in this pursuit of success and money, and and I think really what it was is, one, I didn't want to let them down, but I want to be a good provider for them. But I also wanted to like prove to myself that I could break the cycle.
Yeah.
Because I told you in the beginning, I kind of come from humble means. My parents are amazing people, but just for whatever reason, anybody with my last name that I know of has never been able to succeed financially. Yeah. And I've been on this mission, like, I'm going to break that cycle. I'm going to be the first one that shows we can freaking do it.
Yeah.
We are worthy of success just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Why has nobody in our family done it? It's like, I'm going to be that one.
Well, you broke the cycle, and you proved to yourself time and time again that it can be done, that you can be successful. Yeah. And then finally you kind of realigned your values, and you said, hey, success is not just the money that you make. Your parents were successful, as you said, as raising you in a good household.
Yeah.
And that's a good form of success. And that was the piece that you were missing.
I was missing that big time. Yeah.
And so your success finally came in your own head when you had, I have business success, but I also have success at home with my wife and kids. And that's the most important. That's the lesson. Yeah. That's the most important lesson learned.
I mean, because that's where happiness comes from. Like, even though I was getting a sense of fulfillment in my professional career, succeeding, I was like completely unfulfilled at home. And it wasn't her fault. It wasn't anybody's fault except mine, Yeah. And once I kind of like clicked on that, and once she kind of like laid it down, like, you figure your shit, figure it out.
Yeah.
Or this isn't going to work, because I don't.
She helped you see what was, she was the catalyst. She helped you see what was really important. And it really probably shifted your view to a point where you could focus on, again, the more meaningful things.
Totally. And you know what's interesting is, now that I've like, okay, I'm going to quit taking this all so seriously. I'm going to focus on what matters most to me. And all that's done is allow me to do better in every category of my life. You know, I'm healthier now physically than I've been in years. I am, like I said, we're having the best financial year ever.
Yeah.
And I'm happier at home than I've been in years, you know? And it's like, when you have your values aligned, you really know what's most important. And and you focus on that, and like, don't let anything else get in the way. And on top of that, be the kind of person who you want to be. I had to get real clear on who I wanted to be, right? Yeah. I wanted to be a great family man, a great husband, great father, but I also wanted to have peace internally. And when I focused on that, man, everything else just got so much more clear.
Yeah.
And everything's doing better because of it. I'm still figuring all that out too. Still processing through it because it's all still pretty fresh, but
it's working.
Man, it's working.
It's absolutely working. Well, it's funny, kind of wrap things up a little bit, but you know how in our coaching group we had to pick a word for the year? But my word for the year was focus.
Really?
And so when you said that was the biggest thing that you took away. That's the biggest thing that I've kind of been learning recently too, through our program and through working on myself. Focus is just so important, and make sure you're focusing on the right thing.
Yeah. And just being clear on what you want. Focus creates clarity, man. So, and without clarity, you don't know where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. Man, it was so great having you on. I mean, I feel like there's just so many lessons that we could pull from your story, and I'm excited. I mean, I know these guys only get, an hour with you with the podcast, but I can't wait to go into this more and as we hang out. And then, I guess, is there anywhere that they can find like where your short-term rental companies are and stuff?
No, not really. I mean, we didn't even get into that. I have a coaching company that I started, but I'm not, I don't know where that's going. We're on, as far as social media activity and online activity, really at this point, I'm just growing the business word of mouth. Going to start getting more intentional with being online and all that stuff right now. So right now, no, but have me back on when I do, right?
Yeah, we will. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Brad.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks.